Where are we at, Christine?
So we are in one of our many pig pastures. These pigs got here a little less than a month ago. And when they got here, we put them in our training area. So it's an area that has half cover and half pasture. And so they stay in there for about 2 weeks while we get them trained to the electric fence. Because as I will show you a little bit later, that's all we use to keep our pigs where we want them to be, is electric fence. Anywhere from 1 strand to 2 strand. So the first 2 weeks that they're here, it's very important for us to make sure that they get trained and that they also get to know who we are and that they are comfortable with us. And we start to build that relationship. So this is our 4th batch of pigs this year. There is about 85 pigs in here. We normally try to do batches of close to 100, but there are 85 pigs ready, so we said go ahead and send them our way. And you can see with these pigs, they all look a little bit different. We don't do any specific breed selection. We are really looking for like the physical characteristics of pigs. So you'll see some of them are solid pink, some of them are red or have spots. So we have some Hampshire, some Yorkshire, some Duroc, and crosses throughout here. So with the pigs, like I said, we don't select a specific breed right now. We want a pig that is going to work really well outside on pasture. So pigs, their natural behavior is they are going to want to go around and root and use their really tough, powerful nose to explore the ground. You know, find tree nuts and roots and grubs and things like that. So we want a pig that can like walk around very well and ease of walking around, and a pig that just, you know, wants to be outside. You can see them over there eating all that green forage, all those leaves. So we want a pig that's really good at doing that. Hello.
That's great. And so we just you just moved these pigs over into this area how many days ago?
So we brought them out of their training area about a week ago, and then they were a little bit further down in this area. And today I set them up a new paddock. So we have a larger pasture. Within that pasture, we set up smaller paddocks. And so I just moved these pigs into this specific paddock this morning. Oh,
wow, cool. So how about we take a look at some of the things that you set up to create their new paddock, and we can talk about how you use these tools and equipment and things like that?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
We can go ahead and start with this perimeter fence.
Okay.
Over here.
All right, let me jump in here on camera real quick. All right, so folks, we're going to talk about a few things related to equipment and infrastructure for our pastured pig operation. And as we're talking about them, if you have a question about, say, electric fencing, be a good time to ask it while we're talking about it. Don't wait till the end, just jump right in there.
And so I'm just going to talk about a few electric fence things right now. I have a few other items that I can talk more specifically about a little bit further away. So right now I'm just going to talk about our perimeter fence. And so this is I consider this a training pasture. So this is one of 2 training pastures. So they come out of their training area, trained to the electric fence, and then I put them in this area just to make sure that they are trained and they know exactly what that electric fence is before I move them down to our more forested pine tree pastures. And so here, this is a permanent pig electric perimeter fence. And so this is one of the first ones we made. It really doesn't need to be this sturdy. So we have like wood posts, and we have T-posts with the T-post insulators, and then we are using electric high tensile wire to run on here. You can use like 12.5 gauge electric wire. And so for these pigs, we use 2 strands. Okay, so, and you want those strands to be located where the pig can see them. All right, if a pig can see it, it's visible, then they should stay where they are. Electric fence is just a psychological barrier. If a pig wants to get out, then a pig will get out. But the point is to train them to this electric fence so they know what it is. And a pig, it's going to want to go under something rather than go over it. So with with placing your electric wire, you want your bottom strand at about 6 inches off the ground. You want it out of any vegetation, but you want it pretty close to that ground. So when a pig is rooting around, you want it at that pig's eye level so they can see it. And then if they touch it, they'll jump back. That second strand, you want it at the pig's eye level for when they're just standing there. Okay, also very visible for them. And so with this permanent fence, every once in a while you may have to go and raise these insulators depending on the age of your pigs when you put them in here. Once they've been in here for a little while, the pigs are actually going to start rooting at the fence or up to the fence and then create like a little berm. And so you may have to raise those insulators to help keep them up off of the ground.
Awesome. So I don't see any questions coming through about fencing. Is there anything about this area you want to talk about, or are you going to move on to the next piece?
So this is, like I said, this is just our perimeter fence. I will talk about our temporary fences here in just a little while.
Okay, great. Where to next?
We can go to one of our feeders.
Yeah. Okay, and this is this is the main feeder system that we use, right, when they're out on pasture?
Yes. So this is the first brand of bulk feeder that I purchased for our pastured pigs, and this brand is called an Osborne. Mm-hmm. And what we use this for is that this can hold, I believe it's 45 bushels of feed. Okay, so we want the pigs to have access to feed all the time. We don't want them to run out of feed. And with raising batches of 75 to 100 pigs or more, you need to have a large capacity of feed out on pasture. Mm-hmm. And so with my batches of 100 pigs, I put 3 of these Osborne feeders out there. These feeders are technically rated to feed 90 head of pigs, but that's going to depend on your pig size and things like that, and if you're following other livestock husbandry standards. And so I put 3 of these out there with my groups just to decrease the competition. So I want the pigs to eat as much as they want. I don't want them to be competing against each other to get in here. So I'll place the feeders out on pasture, just a little ways away so that there's always open feeder space for them.
Okay.
And the way this works is...
hold on, let me pause you before we get into the operations. We do have a couple of questions coming in. One quick is the vendor info for where we get these feeder. You said it was Osborne?
So the brand is an Osborne feeder. An Osborne, these are specifically for outdoor pig production. Uh-huh. Okay, so you can go to the Osborne site, look up outdoor hog production, and you can find these. I personally buy them off of Barn World, which is a vendor that we use, and they have the other feeder that we're also trying out. They carry that one, and they carry other pig and other animal equipment. So that's from Barn World. That's usually where I go to purchase things from.
Well, somebody broke the ice, and now the questions are rolling in. So you want to take a few of them real quick? We can back up to fencing, actually. There were a couple that came in after we walked over here. Sure. Do we have any issues keeping out predators with such a low fence?
No.
Do pigs have natural predators, really?
No. So we haven't had any predator issues with our pigs. It's actually kind of nice that the fence is low because we do have a deer population, a coyote population, and things like that. So we want those animals to be able to go like over that fence without breaking it or getting tangled in it or anything like that. Okay. And so the height is specific to pigs. So we're not going to be able to use this fence like to keep in sheep or cattle or anything like that. Okay,
that was a great question from Kelton Hayes. Kelton, thanks for that question. Let's take a couple more. Eric Siegfried wants to know, do we keep the grass trimmed under the fence, or do the pigs keep it rooted down for you?
So that's probably one of the most labor-intensive parts of having pigs is keeping those fences clear. And so we do a lot of weed eating. We don't use herbicides or anything like that for our fence rows. If you want to, you could, but we just weed eat it. We use loppers if there's like woody things growing up in there. But yeah, that is the labor intensive part of it. And that's really for our perimeter fences. When we do our temporary fences, I will weed eat an area or bush hog an area to run those temporary fences.
Okay, great. And then We have a couple of questions coming in. Hickory Hill Pastures and Jamie Garner both kind of want to know about the land to pig ratio that you use. So how do you determine what size paddock and what size paddock is this and that kind of thing?
So I'm going to be really honest with you, is I don't measure out the spaces I'm giving the pigs. I've been doing this for a couple years, so I can kind of just eyeball it, and I've been running them over the same pastures, you know, 1 or 2 times a year is all we run the pigs over a certain space. And so I can just know, and I've learned over time through experience how much space they need. Or like, oh, okay, I'll go to that wood post, or 10 T-posts down is where I usually put my fence. But usually you will need like 5 acres of usable land to raise 50 hogs. So it's about, 10 pigs per acre.
Okay, yeah, that's great, perfect. Alrighty, now back to the feeder. We had another question about the feed mixture, and I know we're about to talk about how this works. So what do you put in the feed mixture, and where do you put it, and how does it all work?
So we get our feed, it's a Relco ration, and we get it out of Hostetler's mill, which is up in Missouri. And so we are raising animals for the Grassroots Farmers Cooperative, and so they already have set rations. So we have 2 rations that we use. One is a swine grower 1, one is a swine grower 2. And so that, the one is you'll feed to the smaller pigs up until they're about 150 pounds, and then grower 2 is what you'll finish the pigs on. The number 1 ingredient in that, as you can see, is gonna be corn.
Let me just zoom in there, yeah.
And then like there's the other mineral packs and things like that pigs need that will be added in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
But other than that, I mean, I don't feed them. I know some people like feed kelp and things like that. We just strictly feed them their ration.
But as we can see in the background here, a lot of times they prefer just to chew on what's around, don't they?
Yes, and so when I first move them into a paddock, they are going to go and they are going to explore and eat the green vegetation that they want and they really like. And your feed consumption is actually going to go down for like the first couple days that they're in here. Yeah. And then kind of once they get everything that they like, then they'll come back and start consuming a little bit more of their ration.
Gotcha. That's great. Another question. Let's see. Yes, so Pine Corner Farms just asked GMO or non-GMO ingredients. We do use non-GMO feed.
Non-GMO, yes.
And Jamie Gardner, this is just a more general question. What's the entire length of time they spend on their, how old are they when they go to processing?
So they will be about 7 months old, 7 to 8 months old when they go to processing.
Okay.
With processing, we're more looking towards a target weight rather than an age. So we want them to be close to 300 pounds to go to processing. Did
you mention where we source the feed from?
Yes, from Hostetler's up in Buffalo, Missouri. Okay,
great. Yeah, so anybody else who's interested in non-GMO feed, Hostetler's. Okay. If anybody has any lingering questions about feed, we'll hang out here just for a minute and wait for them to come through in the chat. And then where are we going to go to next? So
I could talk just like the mechanism of this feeder for just a second, and then I actually have a second type of feeder that we use that I would like to show you. Okay. And then we can talk about other things.
Yeah, that's great. Well, while you talk through this, if you have any questions about feed right now, if they come up at any time, just ask them. But we'll talk about this and wait for you to ask your questions. Okay.
So what's really important about your bulk feeder or having your large amount of feed out on pasture is to keep it dry. So if it's going to rain, you want a nice solid feeder to prevent rain from getting in there. These ones, it's open, so I mean, I don't know how many raccoons come up and, you know, grab a snack in the middle of the night or anything like that. But you want to try and decrease the amount of feed wastage. Because, I mean, if you go and you spill a pound of feed every day, that's going to add up very quickly, okay? And so that's going to go away from your profit of the pigs. And so with this feeder, like I said, it's open. There's 12 head spaces in there for the pigs to get to. When they're small like this, like 2 pigs can eat out of each head space. Once they get a little bit bigger, it's just 1 pig per head space. In here you can see that there is a metal paddle, and I believe there's 5 There's 5 arms to this paddle. And the way this works is that the pigs will come up and, as they're eating, rooting in here, their nose will move this, and that helps drop the feed down. And so there's a dial and a cone inside, and so it's us that dictates how much feed falls down. And so the rule with these is that once your pigs bed down for the night, you only want this trough to be half to a quarter full of feed. You don't want it full all the time, because if it rains or anything like that, that's also going to waste and spoil your feed. So trying to decrease that as much as possible is important. But with the pigs this age, it's actually difficult for them to spin this paddle by themselves. So if we use this in our receiving barn, then we have to go up there a couple times a day and actually spin the paddle and draw the feed out for them, because I want them to have access to feed all the time, like I said. So I don't want them to be waiting on me to come and get feed out. So,
is there any way to lock the spinning mechanism?
Not on this one, no.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Alrighty, and I don't see anything else about the feed, so let's walk over to the other feeder if you want to,
Sure.
if you're done here.
Yes.
Okay. They're not as, so we've filmed pigs before quite often at Heifer Ranch, and these are not as aggressive, I guess you could say, towards us right now.
They're more interested in exploring their new space that I gave them today.
Right.
Like I said, they've only been here for a month, so they're still getting to know us. But once they're here for a couple months, they won't leave us alone. We really build a friendship, and sometimes with them, that friendship is a little too close. But so this, if you want to get this part right here.
Okay.
This is a new feeder that I've only had for a couple months. It's a Supreme Suix brand, and this is actually a 60 bushel. With that Osborne feeder that we just saw, you can actually add another ring on top of there, and that can be made into a 60 bushel. But that one is only a 45 bushel. This Supreme comes this size at 60 bushels. And so what I like about this one is that there's doors on the feed trough. And so, I mean, and you can hear the pigs eating out of it. When they walk away, that door slams down. And this is just a gravity feeder, right? So there's this ring in here, and we can raise and lower that with a crank on the inside, and that determines how much feed falls out of here when it's empty. So with this, pigs at any age can use this, up to as low as 40 pounds. They can access feed out of here. So I use this with this batch of pigs in the pig barn, and I mean, they absolutely loved it. I didn't have to go up there and spin the feeder or anything like that. I knew that they always had access to feed whenever they wanted it. And so I really like this one. Like I said, I've only had it for a couple months, so I can't do too many reviews on it, but it holds a large amount of feed. There's the door, so it keeps the rain out.
Oh yeah.
So there's less wastage from weather and things like that. So so far I really like it.
Yeah, it seems like a really good design with a lot that overcomes some of the challenges from the other ones.
Yes, and I also got this from Barn World, where
Gotcha.
I got the Osborne feeders from.
Do you think it puts down enough feed for the more mature hogs?
Yes, because as soon as that empties out, I mean, more is going to be coming down. So as soon as they're eating it, more will be falling down. I would like to point out, with all of these feeders, we do have them on some sort of structure, some sort of skid structure, because the number one tool that I use with our pig enterprise is our tractor. So I can do almost everything involving the pigs by myself. I can move them by myself, like within their pastures to different paddocks. I can move their feeders and feed them all by myself.
Well, that's actually great timing. So Anthony Gonzalez just asked about how we move the bins to new paddocks or move them around. So you do them by yourself, obviously. You're very strong. You get down there and lift.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
How do you move these giant feeders around?
So if you could see over here, this one is on a wood pallet. I would not suggest that.
Let's show just real quick.
Yeah.
So you don't think this is a good setup having it on a wooden pallet like
right,
this?
because the other pallet parts under here break, and then sometimes they get in the way of your tractor forks. And so what we have on our other feeders is, yes, we have like a wood platform, but we just have like a 4x4 skid on either side, so that my tractor forks can get under there. You know, there's high enough clearance off the ground, and then it actually makes the pigs, like, you know, not try and like root under there or anything like that. But yeah, I can just easily come up here with my tractor forks, lift it up and move it.
So you have to use a tractor with forks on it. Do you know of any other way that other people move these around if they don't have a tractor maybe? I mean, it's kind of a, I don't know if you could drag them safely.
You might be able to drag them safely. I would worry about them like tipping over.
Yeah.
So these things are very expensive. I mean, like over $1,500 for one of these. But I mean, they last a long time. They definitely serve their purpose. They keep your feed out on pasture and dry. But I highly recommend these. But yeah, using a tractor would be the easiest way. So if you're trying to drag it over, you know, rough terrain, that might not be a good idea.
Awesome. Okay, that's a great question, Anthony. Thank you, Anthony, for that one. Anything else about feed? We're going to move on to the next area in just a moment.
To waterers.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to go and show you how we water the pigs on pasture in just a moment. If you have any last minute questions about feed, about this specific design, we can answer them as we walk. But the pigs are thirsty right now, so let's go check them out.
Yeah, through this jungle. Hey, pigs. I don't want to scare ya.
All right.
Okay. So if you have seen, or if you go back and watch the Pastured Pig YouTube video that Tyler was talking about earlier, you will see the old way of us watering our pigs, but I've had some really great constructive criticism and other people reaching out to me about ways that they do things. So if you have suggestions for me, I'm very open to those. But this is a suggestion that a few people have sent me. And so we have always used these 50-gallon Rubbermaid water troughs. Okay, they're lightweight, they're easy to use, they hold a good amount of water at one time. And so with those water troughs, we actually made a water guard, which you can see on that one over there.
A water guard,
I call it a water guard.
Right.
It's homemade.
Sorry. So this wooden frame.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a water guard. So the water just slides in there. And the reason that we did this is because we were having issues with pigs like getting into the water, because pigs absolutely love water. So they wanted to try and get in there. And so we created this so that pigs will not get in there. And then a few pigs can drink at the same time, you know, without a lot of aggression, without them touching faces and things like that. So this serves its purpose very well. It makes our water tub just a little bit heavier, but that's a good thing because the pigs won't try to like if they rub on it, they're not going to knock it over, and they're not going to try to flip it over or anything like that. So that's the purpose of the water guard. And then what we added is this yellow Joby valve, and we just tied it into the side of the water so we can have a hose running in there. So we have access to fresh water all the time. As soon as the pigs drink some water, some fresh water automatically comes in here. We can determine the height of the water just by adjusting the height of this valve.
Is it on a chain or a rope?
It's on a little rope, a little nylon rope.
Okay.
You can see that. And so with that one over there that the pigs are currently drinking out of, they can get in there. That one's a little bit dirtier than this one here. So I run this electric fence over top of our waterers so that the pigs don't get to that yellow Joby valve.
Okay. Got a couple of questions coming in if you want to take a second.
Sure.
All right. Eric Siegfried asking about, backing up to electric fencing, just how do we acclimate the pigs to the electric fencing?
Sure. And we can also, if you guys are interested with maybe our next batch of piglets, we can do a live stream with them in their training area. But the way we do it, so we have, whenever you're training pigs, no matter what you're going to use, so we have a covered area with outdoor access.
Let me get over here, away from the electric fence.
Yeah. And then with that, we have a very strong perimeter fence. And ours is actually just an old corral system with some hog panels or with some of that field fence. So you want it to be a permanent, tight, strong perimeter fence. And then within that, we'll set up some of this either temporary poly wire, or I actually just retrofitted our training area to use the high tensile. And your whole area doesn't need to be surrounded by that electric fence. You know, you just need an area. I believe I have 2 sides of ours is electric. And so pigs are so curious. They love to explore things. So they are going to immediately go up there and they're going to touch it, you know, with their nose or with their ears or things like that. And you need that fence to be very hot. So up in the training area, I want that fence to be like 8,000. And so as soon as the pigs touch it, they'll jump back. Okay, and the pigs are going to touch it a couple times. If you're using the poly wire, you may go up there a couple times a day, and your poly wire is going to be on the ground, or they're going to knock over the post or things like that. That means that the pigs are interacting with that. Once the fence is, you know, secure for, you know, 5 to 7 days, the pigs are more than likely trained to that fence. You know, they're not touching it, they're not knocking it down, so they know exactly what it is, what's going to happen when they touch that fence.
Alrighty, back to the water.
Yes.
Got a question from Hickory Hill Pastures about these water guards. Are they bolted or clamped on? Are they built? How are they built onto this? How do they not pop off?
So this one is one of our very first trial ones that we did. And I think I like this one the best, actually, because we slid the waterer in here, and then we kind of like built it around the waterer.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to show from the side here. So you could still slide this out, couldn't you?
Yes, you can.
So if you can see that there, Hickory Hill, they built a frame perfectly to match the sides of it and can slide it in and out. Cool.
And then we do have some, so this one over here that the pigs are drinking out of, that was a different design that we were trying. That one actually hinged from the back and came forward, and we had 2 latches here. And that's actually why it broke, because the pigs would mess with the latches up front because, like I said, they're very curious. They want to touch things and explore things. So, I mean, they just ended up like chewing on them and breaking them. And so with it being hinged, they would lift that up and it just broke off. So I was like, well, I'll just try it without a guard and just screw in these insulators here. It doesn't work as well as I would like. I think I actually need to move these insulators up to being about halfway over the waterer. That would protect my Joby valve a little bit better, and that would do a better job of protecting the pigs from getting into the water. What you need to watch out for, especially if you have pigs with really floppy ears, you want to make sure that your electric fence is, you know, far enough back in the water that when those floppy-eared pigs try to drink, their ears don't touch that.
Gotcha. So the main purpose of the wire is to keep the pigs out, to keep them away from the valve?
Yes, both of those things.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, yes, sorry. To keep them away from the hose connection.
Gotcha, right, in the back there.
Yeah, so we have hoses going to each of these waterers. We do not want the pigs to have access to those. If they do, you know, they're gonna chew on them, they're gonna cause a leak, and then all the pigs love water, so that's just gonna turn into a muddy mess. So, so the wire actually goes over both of these waterers and keeps them away from the back of the waterers.
Okay, one more quick question asked a few minutes ago. Heather Owen asked about aggression with pigs. Is it ever a problem, especially around the waterers? Do they ever get aggressive?
They would be more aggressive, say if they ran out of water or if they were like really thirsty. So I'll dump these waters out every couple of days just to give them clean, fresh. I'll rinse them out. At that point, the pigs know exactly that it's really fresh water, so they'll come up and you know, they'll just bark at each other. They may snap at each other, but other than that, I mean, they're not gonna really like harm one another.
Yeah, and they don't ever harm you or me. Like, they'll nip at us and play with us, but they're not
dangerous. If you sit still
dangerous.
too long with the pigs, they will come up and, you know, try to bite your boots, and they're eating my watch earlier and things like that.
Okay.
The only time you would get aggression with pigs towards each other would be like if there's competition for food or water.
Yeah.
And then if you're introducing new pigs together.
Okay. Another question from Frisia Burns. She about the feeder with the doors on it.
Okay.
How do you train pigs to use that? How do you teach them to lift that little flap up, or do they just learn it on their own?
So with these pigs, like I said, that was my first time using that feeder in my training barn. And so I always go up there and I really like to hang out with the pigs. I want them to know who I am. I want to create a bond and a friendship with them. So I have a 5-gallon bucket, and what I did with that specific feeder is I took my 5-gallon bucket and I sat right there. I lifted up a few lids, like I just like talked to the pigs and called them over, and I would like move the feed around so they would hear it and they would want to come up and see who I am, and then they realize that there's food in there. So I mean, it did take them probably a day or two to all really go up and start eating out of it, but it was a really quick training process.
Fantastic. See, Gary Isabel asked, do we ever use nose rings?
No, we do not. That is against the livestock standards that we use. And I have had experience with pigs with nose rings, and if you don't put them in just exactly right, then they actually don't really work. Pigs, I mean, that's their number one behavior. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to express, is rooting around and exploring the dirt. And so that nose ring is going to prevent them from doing that. So we want our pigs, you know, to exhibit all of their natural behaviors.
Great. All right, that's great. I think we've got to most of the questions for this section. If anybody has any more questions, please keep them coming, and we're going to move on to the next section.
Sure.
Okay.
So we can talk about our temporary fence.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So as I said, my perimeter fence for about 4 of my pig pastures is this high tensile electric fence. It's pig specific, so you can't really use that for multi-species just because of the height. But within my pig pastures, I create smaller paddocks. And so to do that, I just use poly wire and then these poly posts.
So let me show our audience, for
Yes.
those who might not know, the difference between high tensile wire, poly wire, and the posts. So we have a little bit of everything right
Sure.
here. If you want to maybe point out the components.
Yeah, okay. So this solid, smooth piece of wire, that's that high tensile wire.
Right.
Okay, so
and that's a
there's-
galvanized metal.
Yeah, I believe this is a 12.5 gauge. Okay. This white post right here is a poly post, and it's just made out of plastic. And then this black and white wire has metal filaments running through there, so it's a braided wire.
Like a nylon-ish rope, kind of, right? But it has metal running through it.
Yeah, it has metal filaments running through there, and
Can you
that's
even
what's
see it? Yeah.
that's what's carrying your charge through that
Okay.
wire. This poly wire is very manipulable, and so I mean we tie all sorts of knots in there, and I mean we can make our fences whatever length we want them to be and things like that. This is not as sturdy, obviously, as the high tensile wire, but it works really well for our purpose. And this is multi-species equipment. So we also do grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, and pastured chickens and turkeys. So this equipment can be used for all of those species.
Yeah, fantastic. Definitely some questions coming in on fencing, and one more general question. So this is from Jamie Gardner. So over the course of the pig's life here at the ranch, how often do you move them to a new paddock?
Good question.
Yeah.
So we want to move our pigs, you know, every 7 to 14 days. They will not stay in any place longer than 2 weeks. If it's raining and really muddy, I may have to move them sooner than that 7-day mark. And that's really me out here observing, you know, making sure that they're not disturbing the area too much. We don't want to create what I call like a moonscape. So we don't want bare soil everywhere. pigs are going to pick a certain spot that they like, and that's gonna be like their loafing area where they go and hang out and spend, about 50% of their time. And yes, they're gonna go out and explore other places, but they're gonna create disturbance in that area where they choose, that area that they really like. They're gonna create disturbance. As you can see, that pig is in the water right now. They're gonna create disturbance around their waterers. They're gonna create disturbance around their feeders. And so every time I feed the pigs, I move their feeders so that I can, move that disturbance around. So it's not just in one location. Whenever I dump these waterers out and clean them, I move them to a new location as well.
Okay, fantastic.
So to answer your question, every 7 to 14 days, we will move the pigs to a new paddock.
Oh, perfect. Angie, let's see. And Julie Joak wants to know about the voltage on the high tensile.
Yeah. So when I set this fence up this morning, I tested it, and it was at 6.7 volts.
Okay, that's on the poly wire?
Yeah,
or
that's on the poly wire.
Okay,
right
and
here.
the high tensile?
The high tensile can carry the same, if not more. You just need to make sure that they are clear of any vegetation or woody stalks and things like that. And it's also going to depend on your charger, if your charger can carry enough volts.
Can you spin that one around, or should I walk around?
So this is a safe fix charger. We have a few different brands of chargers here that we use. These are solar chargers, so I move these with the pigs. Okay, so each group of pigs, they have their own solar charger. So every time they move, this moves with them.
And we're in a when you're raising pigs on pasture, a lot of times it's silvopasture, there are trees around. We're in a relatively shaded area. It's a kind of overcast. Do you ever have problems with the sun hitting that?
Yeah, so we try to keep these faced towards the south because that's going to get the most sunlight throughout the day. Sometimes we will have to swap them out. So there's a battery in here that's going to hold some of that charge. And so once that's all used up, if you have a few days of cloudy weather, you may just need to swap it out for a new charger and let this one hang out in the sun and get recharged.
Okay. Awesome. Anything else about these fences we want to talk? I think we got it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I like about actually these poly posts is there's all these different heights where you could put your wire. And so that's very helpful as the pigs are growing. So as they're smaller, you can see I'm using the second and third notch, and that's going to be right at their eye level where they're going to be exploring the most. And then once they get bigger, I can actually go down to just one strand of poly wire or high tensile wire, and they'll stay in as long as it's visible and it's at their proper height.
Fantastic. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about the fencing operations that we're using here, just let us know and we'll jump back to them in a minute. But for now, we're going to move on to a couple of other things that we want to show you as part of today's live stream. We have got about 15-20 minutes left, so we're going to go over here,
yes,
cover a couple of things, and just keep those questions rolling. We appreciate you sticking with us. All right, what's this behemoth?
So this is, I call it a transport bin. This is what I use to feed my pigs. I have fed our pigs a number of different ways. When we first started doing larger batches of pigs, we were actually getting pallets of bagged feed, and we'd have to go out there and open those bags and dump them into those bulk feeders. So we've done it like that. I also used to take the tractor, go and get the feeder, bring it back to our 10-ton grain bin, auger the feed into there, and then take it back. And so that's a lot. It takes a long time. You're using a lot of diesel for your tractor. It's pretty labor intensive, just driving around. And so I purchased one of these. I purchased this, I believe it is called Bulk Express Bulk Container, or Bulk Container Express. Those three words are in there. But it's called a hopper bin. And so the inside of it is shaped like a hopper.
Let me show them. I'll just stick the camera up there. Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. And so I can fill this up with our grain bin. And so this stays up here near our grain bins. I use a tractor to move it around. And so I can fill this up, take it out to the pastures, and this holds enough feed to completely fill up one of those feeders or if those feeders are, say, like a quarter full or half full, it will fill up 2 of those. So this is a huge time saver. I don't have to run back and forth. I can just take 1 load of this out there at a time. It does come with a lid, so if it's raining, I can put that lid on there and still go and feed them. The way it works is that once I'm out there, I will drop this down in the pasture. I will go and I will move those bulk feeders to the new places I want them to be. I'll go back and pick this up, and what I have to do is to lift the fork so it's over top of the feeder, and then there's just a little door down here that I pull, and that's what drops the food out.
Okay, yeah.
And so,
go ahead. This is, just go ahead.
And so I can still see in the feeder, and once it's as full as I want it to be, I can go ahead and shut that door and relock it and either come back and fill it up again or move on to my second feeder.
And this is already, does it come on the skids like this?
Yes, this is exactly how it came. These are reinforced with some wood under there, so there's no way for your pallet forks to, break anything. This is very sturdy plastic. You can see all the mud on there, so the pigs will come up and rub on it, and they won't hurt it at all. So if you go and look for one, you can just buy this bottom half, or you can go ahead and buy this extension. All right, so I went ahead and got both of them so I could carry more feed at one time. You also just need to make sure that your tractor can handle that whole weight, because you're gonna have to lift it up pretty high in order to get it over top of that feeder.
And sometimes maneuver it in some tricky situations, right?
Yes, for us, yes.
So this is a huge time saver for you,
It is.
right?
Yeah,
That's the main
definitely.
reason we're doing it. It's efficiencies from getting the feed from our grain bins out into the pasture, so you don't have to make that extra trip every time you want to move feed around. You don't have to take the feeders out of the paddocks when they may
Right.
be buried pretty deep in there sometimes.
Yeah, so I may have them pretty far within our pine pastures, and also it's pretty dangerous moving your empty feeders around like that, or even your full feeders around like that. And so for me, it's a long trip from where my pigs are in our bottomland all the way up here to where our grain bins are. And so that's a lot of wear and tear also on your feeder. And then if you happen to do something and your feeder falls off and breaks or anything like that.
Okay. We got one more question coming in. It's about loading pigs and sorting them. I think we got a sorting board we're going to show in a minute. So we'll hold that question for just a minute. So Jamie Garner, I see your question. We're going to get to you in just a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So that's my transport container. That's
All right.
how I feed the pigs out on pasture.
Nice.
We can talk about this real quick, and then we can move on to Jamie's question.
Okay.
So those of you that do any type of pasture farrowing with pigs, you recognize this as a farrowing hut, which is exactly what it is. We had, I believe, 15 of these back when we were farrowing sows on pasture, which we are no longer doing. We are just receiving weaned pigs and feeding them out. So we still had these, so we're going to use them. We don't need to buy new all the time. Use what you have, especially if you can use it for multi-species. And so this is just, it's a little small, but pigs can get in there. So this is what we use for our winter shelter. It's 3-sided, which is very nice. The purpose of these is to allow the pigs to get out of the elements. So you want them to get out of the rain or the snow or the cold and the wind. And so in the wintertime, we will put these out with our pigs. We will bed it down with hay and replenish that hay as needed. And then the pigs just have access to it. Even though it's out there, it doesn't mean that the pigs are gonna go in there and use it, but they have access to it if they need it. And then, so that is for our wintertime. We do not use these in the summertime, especially in Arkansas. This is metal, and so this is going to turn into a little oven if it's out in the sunlight. And so to keep our pigs cool in the summertime, we do forested pork. And so our pigs have access to so many trees, so much shade. And so that's how they get out of the sun. And then we also give them access to wallows. And so we will use our garden hoses and we will create a little wallow space for them. If we don't create a wallow, they will create one for themselves. So I like to go ahead and pick the place where I want it to be, you know, where I don't need to drive the tractor around there, so it's not right up against the fence. You know, you have to think about the future paddock and how you're going to use it. And so just creating a wallow for them, because pigs can't sweat. So in the Arkansas summers, you know, when it's 100 degrees outside, they need to get in that water and to get covered in that mud. And that's when they're going to be the happiest, honestly.
Hey, that's awesome. So we do have a question that came in about farrowing, actually. And so you mentioned that we're not farrowing here at Heifer Ranch.
Correct.
But let's see. Hagen asked, do you ever breed your pigs? And so we don't right now.
We don't. All the males that we get are already castrated by the time they get here.
But I guess they wanted to know about farrowing crates or pens. They want to know if we set them up, if we're breeding them. Is there anything you want to say about farrowing crates or pens for a breeding operation generally? So
when we were farrowing here, we were doing pasture farrowing. And so we had like smaller groups of sows, so about 8 sows per group. And we would give them these farrowing huts prior to farrowing. And then we would let them use it if they wanted. Half the time they would actually go pick a spot underneath a tree and farrow there. So we gave those pigs, you know, full range over what they wanted to do and where they wanted to farrow.
On pasture,
on pasture.
With huts like this, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay. Kind of unrelated to this hut, but a good question nonetheless. Jacqueline Owens wants to know, do we have a vaccination protocol for our pigs?
We do not vaccinate our pigs. We also don't use antibiotics. The pigs will be vaccinated prior to them coming here. And so that will be a multi-way vaccine. You know, the farmer that farrowed them will vaccinate them. If they come from out of state, you know, they'll get health papers saying that they were vaccinated and things like that for pneumonia and other diseases. But once they're here, we do not vaccinate.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see, we've got a couple more questions. So I'm gonna jump in here. We got about 10 minutes left for the live stream today, and we're really thankful for everybody for hanging out. We hope this has been an enjoyable experience for you. We hope you've learned something. We certainly always do every time we do these live streams, and we appreciate you showing up for them. So we're going to cover a couple of other things here. If you have any more questions, go ahead and chat them in the comments, and feel free to give us some feedback on how the stream went today. What worked well for you, what didn't? Is there anything that we could do better or focus on in the future that you would like to see? We definitely would like to hear from you. So with that, we'll turn over to the last couple of things you want to talk about.
Yes. So just jumping back to fencing real quick, and then remind me to talk about gates too, in case I forget.
Okay.
So like we saw, we use poly posts a lot for our interior fencing, for our different paddocks. If you watch the Pastured Pig YouTube video, you'll see the different types of fencing I use for the perimeter fence. And we use a lot of rebar. So our garden used to use these to trellis their tomatoes, and they're using a different system. So he gave them to me, and I just cut them down to be about 3 foot. And so this was something free and very, very useful for me. So a lot of my perimeter fences I use for my bigger pigs is with rebar. And to get the electric fence on there, I use these Gallagher rod post insulators. There's a whole bunch of different brands of these. But, you know, spend a little bit more money and get the Gallagher because there's a 10-year warranty. You know, if you go a little bit cheaper, they're more than likely to break because they're going to be, you know, in the sun a lot and things like that. So I really like these. They just slip onto the rebar. This is a fiberglass post that I'm going to start using for my next pig pasture.
Oh, and that's just adjustable and you slide it up and down?
Yeah, so it just goes on your rebar or on your fiberglass post or whatever you're using. It just goes on there and you screw it in place. Yeah. And then you can just easily raise and lower this as you need to.
Fantastic.
So that's easier than, say, your T-post insulators.
Okay. A couple other questions about, so one about the feeders. Let me see who asked. It was Ron. Let's see, I'm going to try to get this right. Ruan Nascimento.
Okay.
Nascimento. He would like to know how often you fill the 3 feeders for these 100 pigs?
That's a great question. So I typically feed them twice a week. So I will go out and I'll feed them Thursday or Friday so they have enough feed to last them over the weekend. And then coming back on Monday, I will go and fill up their feed.
And is it a complete fill, or are you just topping them off?
I just top them off. So I'll move them to a new spot and I'll top them off so they can get into the next Thursday or Friday. Because I don't want to have to wait until that feeder gets empty and say I have to go fill those feeders, 3 days in a row, but only fill 1 feeder at a time. I just like to do it all in one day. It takes me, just a little bit longer, but I know that they're full. And I don't want them to run out of feed.
Fantastic.
But if I'm going to move them to a new area, I like their feed to get a little bit lower so that I can move their feeder, because that's how the pigs follow me to their new paddock or to their new pasture. I will have their new paddock set up. I will open up their electric fence, open up a good 3 or 4 posts, get that wire out of the way, and I'll go in with the tractor, I'll pick up that feeder, and I'll move that through that opening. And the pigs are very food motivated, so they will follow me with the tractor or with the feed bin because they know exactly what that means, and they will just come over to their new area.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Anything else prop-wise? The sorting board or anything else over here?
Yeah, we can talk about loading when we do that.
Yes. Okay.
But real quick about gates.
Oh yes.
So.
You want to walk over there?
Yeah, we can walk over here.
I'm gonna check the comments here. Let's see. All right. Hey, thanks Perry for answering the question that I might have missed. I appreciate that. Perry Jones is our executive director for Heifer USA. Appreciate you very much, sir.
Hi, Perry.
And I think we're good to talk about gates now.
Okay.
Perry's
wonderful.
got us covered.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if you watch like other YouTube videos or other pasture pig farmers or things like that, a lot of people talk about like having wood gates in between each paddock. And there's a really good reason behind that. We currently don't use that system. I haven't had an issue not using wood gates. And so, like I said, I have their temporary fence set up. When I move them to the adjacent area, I will just open that like it's a gate. So I will get that electric fence out of the way. So it's a nice open big area. Sometimes the pigs will be hesitant to go over that space because pigs are very smart. They know that there used to be an electric fence there. And so they don't trust us all too well at that point. And so when I take their feeder over there, or when I take their waters over there, or I can just stand on the other side and I call them, it may take a pig or two to go over there, but once they start coming, they'll all start coming over there. But the reason behind having like wood gates or non-electric gates is so the pigs can interact with them. This is a space that they know is not electrified. This gate is going to be very helpful for me when I move these pigs out of this pasture, because this is just one of their training areas. I'm going to move them down to our bottoms, which is probably, I don't know, a mile away from here. And so I will walk them to a corral so I can load them all up together. But to get them out of here, to make sure everyone goes as a group, having them be able to interact with this solid gate, knowing that there's not electricity flowing through here, it's going to be a lot easier on me to get everyone out at the same time. And so that's the same premise behind having like wood gates at each paddock. So the pigs will easily flow through there.
That's really fascinating. So
Yeah.
they get used to the area. They know it's not electrified. So when it comes time for you to move them, they're okay with it. They're a lot
Yeah.
more likely to go through there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's some next level thinking.
Yeah.
That is really great.
So it doesn't need to be like a big metal sturdy gate or anything. I mean, and it doesn't have to be very tall. Pigs are short animals, so like 36 inches is like the perfect height.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to sorting boards and then
Okay.
we'll sign off here.
Yeah.
So got one question that came in earlier about loading pigs for processing and
Yes.
how we do that. We obviously don't have a trailer set up that we would load them into, but Christine's going to show you a little bit of the equipment that we use and talk about the process. And after that, we're going to sign off. And until next time, we're going to do another stream down the road about, like Christine mentioned,
Whatever you want.
whenever we get another batch of piglets arriving, we're going to try to do a live stream to show you our receiving barn area. It's not really a barn, it's an area. And there we can talk about when you get pigs on your farm, what do you do? How do you acclimate them to the equipment? How do you get them ready to use electric fencing? How do you get them acclimated to pasture? So I think that'll be a really great live stream. And if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. And with that, we'll talk about loading pigs for processing.
Okay. So when we load pigs for processing, we have a few different permanent corral systems set up. And those were already here before we started doing pigs. They're initially made for cattle, but they work okay for pigs. You know, we've had to adjust a few things, but they work just fine. If you don't have a permanent corral system, you know, you can use like hog panels or different temporary panels and set that up within the pasture. If you're only doing like a handful of pigs, you can also take your trailer out there in their pasture. You can feed them on that trailer for a few days so that they get on and off and they're not scared of that. And then once they're all on there, you know, you can shut them in and take them to processing. But we have the corral system, so you know, we're very lucky to have that here. And the way that we send our pigs into processing is, so say we have a batch of 100 pigs, we only send in 25 at a time. So that's what our processor can handle in one day. And so the first group of pigs that we send out, those are going to be our really big pigs, you know, those ones that grew faster than everyone else. And so we'll get those bigger pigs out of the way so the other ones can sort of catch up. So we'll bring everyone into our corral system. We like to know their weight when they go into processing so that we can know how much they yield and what their hanging weight's going to be and things like that. But you can eyeball it. They also make these weigh tapes for pigs. You just have to measure their girth and along their back, and you can calculate on average or pretty close to how much they'll weigh. So once we have all the pigs into the corral, we'll weigh them. We use a certain animal spray paint. We can write their weight on their back. You know, we pull out the top 25. And we do that with each batch that's going into processing. Not our last batch because, you know, they're all going in at the same time. Something that works very, very well for us are these pig blind boards. And they're just hollow plastic. We get these from QC Supply. They have different lengths of these. They have ones that are shorter, you know, just the 2 handles, and they have some that are longer. We have the 3-handle ones. These ones work very well for us. They do get a little heavy after a while, so if you're carrying it around the pasture with you. But the point of these is that if a pig can see through you, okay, so if the pig's looking at us, they're going to see our legs, and there's going to be 3 ways that they can go around us. And that's more than likely going to happen if they have the opportunity. And so with these blind boards, you know, that prevents them from seeing a way around us. And so we can just use this, you know, around their head to, in a low stress way, you know, help drive the pigs to where we want them to go.
Fantastic. Simple but effective, right?
Yeah, it's very simple, very effective.
Great.
And I do want to talk about this.
Yeah, let's do it. We still got an audience hanging out with us, so let's do it.
So this is something that I did not take full advantage of until recently, and I had a fantastic volunteer working for me that welded and built this for me. So Jamie, if you see this or watch this, thank you so much for doing this. It is a huge lifesaver. So with the pig enterprise, I try to do everything that I possibly can by myself. I don't need to pull people away from other enterprises or other tasks to help me. And so this is like a transport cage for pigs. And so there's an area on both sides of here where we can use our pallet forks. So I can use a tractor to carry this. So say I had a pig in the pasture, for example, like he had a bad limp, or a pig needed attention for some reason.
Go to the vet or something.
Yeah, go to the vet. If there's like one that I was selling to somebody else or something, if I needed to get 1 or 2 pigs out of 100, I can easily do that by myself.
With this equipment?
With this here.
Yeah.
And so I take the tractor, I put this inside the paddock that the pigs are. There's 2 doors here. And what's nice about this is that it's nice and open. So these are just hog panels welded on here so the pigs can see through it. You know, it's not dark, it's not scary. It's at the pig's level, so they don't have to try to like go up like they would a livestock trailer or anything like that. They can just simply walk right on there. So I will put this in the paddock, I'll open the doors, you know, all the pigs are gonna come up and explore it because it's something new, they wanna know what it is. And so once I find the pig that I want to get in here, I'll use my sorting board and I'll just kind of help get him closer. You know, once he's on there, then I can shut these doors. If there's more than him on there, I can easily get the other pigs off, shut the doors, and then I can just lift this up with the tractor and transport him to wherever I need to go. Say it's a sick pen or, you know, onto a livestock trailer or something like that. I can easily do that by myself.
That's awesome. And it doesn't look like it took too much other than some great welding skills.
Great welding skills.
And the right materials to put it together.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Alrighty. Well, let's see here. Everyone, thank you again for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope that you've benefited from today's live stream, maybe learned some things. I know I learn a ton every time I hang out with super smart people like Christine. Christine, thank you very much for your time and setting all this up for everybody. Join me in giving a nice big digital round of applause for Christine, and feel free to leave some nice comments for her in the comment section below.
Suggestions.
Or
always
suggestions.
Welcome to suggestions.
Absolutely. So from Perryville, Arkansas, Heifer Ranch, we're Heifer USA. I'm Tyler Pearson. That's Christine Hernandez. Thank you everybody for joining us today.